So I want to explain that my work is a little bit different because it's really inspired by the fact that, I was a recruiter for almost 2 decades, and then started coaching and switched sides because of what I was starting to see. And today, what I know is that I talk to clients every single day and members who join the membership who have outperformed and outdelivered, and they still end up out of a job. And I've heard their stories, and I realized in many instances it's outdated strategies that are not suited to a job search based on the rules, how the rules have changed, and based on the rules of 2025. So after what I also see is that after going through all the frustration of finally landing, I see people get caught up in old habits, believing this time it will be different, and hit the snooze button on their career, settle in, and only to get caught in the crossfire of reorganization or acquisition or leadership changes and many, many other disruptions. And I'm sure that some of what I just shared resonates with those of you here today. But I did my TED Talk, I wrote my book, I started my membership, and I do my coaching so that you know that someone is on your side and that that someone is me. And that is the mission that I have, is to be on your side, to give you the inside scoop, and to have my finger on the pulse of everything that's going on. And I do because I talk to so many people every single day and every single week. So I'm very aware of what's going on. So I'm here to tell you today something that is very important to hear. I have some new statistics to share. I have some new information. But today I want to tell you that the rules have changed. They continuously change. You have seen that. With the advent of AI, it will only speed up the frustration level that is going to be brought out by, it's going to be very good on their side, not so good on your side as they continue to execute with that, and make the process a little bit more arm's length is the best way to say it, right? I do want to tell you something that we talked about in the pre-show, if you will, just when we started to gather. You probably saw the stats from the Wall Street Journal. I think it was Wall Street Journal. 117,000 new jobs added last month. That's all jobs all over the place. Um, I want you to know that within my membership and within my Zoom call, where there's hundreds of people in there, we have people from all sectors, all roles. Those some of those 117,000 jobs were created in there. But what I do know is that, especially in the last couple of months, and most recently in about the last 2 weeks, I think we've had 7 people land that are part of the membership. So I've got my fingers on that pulse very closely. Some just in the last few days, and most of them had more than one offer or 3 interviews going at the same time, which means there's leftovers out there, right? The difference is what I'm going to teach you hopefully today that will help you to say, how do I get in that mix? But I share this news because I know there's a lot of buzz out there. I'm guaranteeing you none of those people are in government. I get that. There are sectors that are just being pummeled. And sort of everybody will have their days. We've had the auto industry be pummeled. We've had tech be pummeled. That's what's being pummeled right now. But outside of that, I'm seeing tremendous hiring, some newly created roles. And what I always tell everybody is when there's an empty chair, and that empty chair is important, they're always filling it. It's got to be filled. They cannot leave it empty. Maybe fourth quarter, last 3 weeks, when they're trying to really get their bonus squared away the way they want it. Maybe it gets a little bit slower in the hiring, but they're going to come right in early January because they can't have empty chairs for key roles. Okay. So important things to keep in mind as I speak with you today and share with you what I want to share about how the rules have changed. So let me just fire up my slides and get my Zoom connected, and we'll get going. Okay, so it's it. The rules have changed, and navigating the market feels different because it is different. The rules have changed. Let's explore in this presentation how you need to adapt in order for that to look differently. Okay. So I also know how frustrating it can be, right? So you get the silent treatment, the calls don't get returned. The resume submissions disappear into that giant black hole. You even get the word of we'll be making a decision soon and you're our number one, and then they disappear and dissolve. I just had somebody land a role. He's got this is for me bulletproofing. This is a wonderful story. He's landed a role. He pushed out that happens to be with a bank in New York. He's in technology. He pushed out the start date. They have to do background check anyway. So he said, "Oh, how about early June, maybe mid-June?" Oh, that's fine. In the meantime, he has a fabulous other opportunity, more money, better environment, not in banking, back in where he actually wants to be. And he's continuing to speak in that. That's what you do when you're bulletproofing. He's continuing to talk. He may get a offer on that beforehand. But he didn't get that through resume submission. He got it through networking, right? And has a little kind of a skid into that position. So he did have, though, and this is the important thing to know, the company that hired him left him with no communication for 2.5 months. They interviewed him. He went through the whole series, 2.5 months. And then they said, we have an offer letter coming to you. That's how crazy it is out there, right? Dead ends, right? So networking meetings don't yield or have no leads, and recruiters never reach out. There's a reason for that. I'm going to explain that. That has less to do with the hiring conditions and more to do with what you need to do in order to change that yourself, right? So, I mean, the frustrating part for me is when you do go through and you get to be first or second, and then it just falls apart. You get no feedback. That's so frustrating. Like, what's one thing you could tell me, right? They don't, and then you land, and then circumstances quickly change, and that threatens another career gap. I actually created a training in the membership for how to ask questions during an interview, so that you can identify whether the person you're interviewing with is potentially going out the door right behind you landing. And I did that because we had like 5 or 6 people land, and their hiring manager in some instances wasn't even there when they got there, or was there for 90 days or 60 days afterwards. So there's a psychological way to ask some questions that will get them to say something, like, what do you love most about your job? Think about what you might feel like if you're interviewing for 3 other jobs and somebody says, so what do you love most about your job? I was a psychology major. You can bluff it as much as you want, but it's going to come clear. They go, well, it's a great place, and you can always tell versus the authentic answer. So that's just one of the questions you can ask. But we did that because of this causing another gap when you don't get the real deal, and you're interviewing with somebody who's been interviewing all morning for another job, right? So what are the big things about the aspects of the rules have changed? I'm going to give you some stats on this risk aversion, but risk aversion dominates. It started to dominate right after the Great Recession, and then 2019 it got a little bit better, 2018 a little bit, 2019, and when 2020 hit, I thought we're gonna conquer this. They're not going to be so risk averse, and I'll show you what risk averse means directly. But guess what? Then COVID hit, and then they took a whole year out of the story, and it's back to was already back to risk aversion, and that is just elevated and elevated and elevated, and that is one of the things that's most impacting landing these days, right? Transferable skills are now no longer valued. So when you're in there and saying, "Well, I didn't work in this industry, but I have these transferable skills," it's wah because you'll see the stats of what they're worried about. They are not as interested in they're so safe bound that and risk averse that they're not looking at opportunity, because when you say I have these transferable skills and I know all this information from this other industry and we innovated and this is how we can innovate here, they go, that'd be really great, but that sounds like a risk. They're not saying that necessarily to you, but it's happening in the process. So when you are getting out of your sweet spot in terms of your industry and you're interviewing, and they have other candidates that are inside their industry, those are that they may love you. And when it gets down to pulling the trigger, the things that I'm going to show you they're afraid of will make them to go to the safe candidate mostly every time. And you think, but I had great interviews. Partially, they're also using it to pick your brain, to get the information about other industries, but they don't want to have the whole risk of hiring somebody from other industries. So I've had people say they want me to do this strategy thing, and it seems really strange. It's like, you're being their consultant. That's what's going on. It happens quite frequently, right? And then timelines are extended, and you're going to see why that is happening, right? So The different rules that are in vogue are not every search is alike. Different rules apply to different situations, right? So the landscape is consistently changing. So let me give you a good example. When I was talking about recruiters back there, different rules applying to different situations. If you have had a large career break, not even 12 months at the executive level, but 18 or 24 months, have a large career break, the likelihood that a recruiter is going to be able to help you, unless it's somebody that really has known, liked, and trusted you and maybe placed you somewhere else, is unlikely because their client is not paying them five and six figures to go out and find somebody who hasn't done the work recently because they know how much has changed in those time frames, and certifications, etc., never trump, seldom trump. There is a way that they can trump experience. The certifications don't beat experience most of the time, right? So the the recruiters that if you have that situation, reaching out to recruiters will not yield your results. But if you don't have that situation, then reaching out effectively, and you can get my recruiter strategy off of my website. I'll give you all the details on that at the end. Will work, right? But the important thing to know is that that's how you can decide is the length of not gap, a short gap, which again for 12 to 18 months for executives is not a big gap, but that's what's happening, right? So here's some research that tells a clear story. Career changes, this is changers. So this is research based on if you try to pivot and say, I'm going to pivot. They're not hiring over here, or I want a fresh start. I don't want to be in this industry anymore. Career changers face 8 to 10 months additional search time. So on top of the standard, that's additional time, on top of the standard estimated 6 to 12 months for an executive role landing. Changing industries, and if you change industry and function, so you think, I want to do something fresh and new, and I want to do it in a different industry, it adds 11 to 14 months to the already 8 to 10 months that you see above. And 62% of career changing executives have to accept lower compensation because they say if they give you the opportunity at all to make a change because they like you and they're going to give you a shot, they're going to lowball the compensation because they're trying to reduce their total outlay risk, right? This could be, and they're also using the argument of, but you don't know our industry and it's going to take you a while to get up to speed. And I'll show you how they feel about that. So 68% of hiring managers admit to more conservative candidate selection today. So you might have passed muster last year or the year before. They're much more conservative in 2025, and that was certainly the case at the end of 24. 71% added interview rounds specifically for industry knowledge. So you probably have been in cases where it's like, why another round? They are trying to see if you're trying to switch industries, the more people that talk to you, there's two things that they're trying to do. They're trying to see if you really do understand their industry, right, in any way, shape, or form, and have transferable skills if you say so. But they're more trying to say, if we hire this person who doesn't have industry experience, how are they going to blend with the rest of the team? And if it's mostly in a leadership role where you have people reporting to you, are they going to build the trust and credibility with that team as fast as we need them to do it? Because we've got no time. It's already now, we're getting into halfway through the year. We got no time to mess around. If they can't sound like they're going to, catch on to the industry quickly, and their people are going to say, why don't you hire somebody who can actually help me instead of somebody that I'm training? That's what they're trying to avoid because they've experienced that. 71%. 84% cite reduced onboarding time as benefit of industry hires. So it says reduced onboarding time. That's what Deloitte's study says. I can tell you, and if you talk to people who are in learning development, they will concur with me. Learning and development at the more senior levels is becoming almost non-existent. They will train, entry level. They'll train maybe the ones that are going to be trained to be the next level up managers. But at the executive level, it's like, nope, we have no time for that. You better come in here trained. You better know what you're doing. We're not going to do it 84% of the time. So let me got to move my screen over here. ATS. So here's some ATS. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a sec. Filtering of non-traditional candidates. 88% of employers use systems that filter candidates without traditional backgrounds, meaning If you didn't come up the way everybody else inside of here has come up, we've got it set. So they look at the industries that you were in, the companies that you were in, et cetera. 88% are screening them out and getting only those who present the least opportunity for risk. 70%, 76% of job postings require exact industry terminology for consideration. So when people say, I've tweaked my resume, et cetera, it is that's the kind of scrutiny that just in that system is going to do, right? 72% of applications with career gaps are rejected without review. 72% because they feel that's another risk. Now, don't be glum. There's a way around this. But if you think that you're going to rely on postings and actually land sooner than later, these statistics are saying, I don't think that that's going to be the case. 62% of professionals changing careers must start at lower levels as well. So if you're going to try to change, you're going to get less money. Because it's tied to you're going to come in at a lower level. Why is that? We still have that concern about how you show up as a leader. And if we put you at the top of the heap and people say, he has no credibility, she doesn't know our industry, she couldn't even answer this question about the product, that's a problem. So that's why they're doing a step down if they do it at all. And it's still pretty seldom. Now, I'm going to many of you know there's two things that I am very passionate about besides just helping you stay in the role once you get there. One is mindset. We'll talk about that later on. And the other is this idea of really knowing that when you are using applications instead of using relationship building, you are the way I have best way to describe it is if you are relying only on applications, you are fishing in a pond that is stocked, but 70 to 80% of the fish are fake. Why do I say that? They all went to Bass Pro Shop and got a fake fish that will attract that other fish. But here's the problem. That's because 70 to 80% of those roles, and you're going to see in a few more stats why that is, are going to go to people inside the company, especially right now. Least risk of all is inside the company. So you don't want to be fishing in the same pond. You say, oh, these people, every time I go to somebody, there's three other people in FANG that are interviewing for that role because you're all fishing in the same pond. But 70 to 80% of those jobs statistically they're not real openings. They have either a preferred candidate or an internal candidate. So what do you need to do? You need to believe what I lecture on when I do my relationship building. And I don't think I've done that workshop here for a while, so I'd love to come back and do that, which is many people say, but I'm an introvert, so I can't network. My passion is to help you understand that introverts are the very best networkers, relationship builders. I should change that, relationship builders, because you listen, you're interested. When somebody's talking, you're in rapt attention and you're interested in what they have to say, and you ask them great questions. Really a good foundation for a great relationship. The problem is most introverts think they have to network like an extrovert, and you don't. You have to network like yourself, and that's where the success always comes from. So that's another session altogether. But I have to stress you're going to be in a long hunt if you're relying on postings because the pond is stocked. So here's what's happening: internal mobility. They're 4.5 times more internal versus external. They're filling the positions with internal promotions. Skill overlap, required skill match for external hires is up 70%. More, you have to have more matches if you're outside than inside, 85% skill up. Higher scrutiny, recruiters reporting increased scrutiny of non-industry candidates. If they present somebody, recruiters say it's a long haul in the process with that person, and then they also don't come out on top. And the company's expecting conservative hiring to continue through Q1 2026. I don't think it's ever going to change at this point. So I don't mean to be fatalist, but it's not a problem. It's just you got to change the way you're doing it. It's better to plan that it might not go away. I haven't seen any movement for so long that I just can't imagine it. So what are the risk factors to them? Size of your prior company. They get very hung up on, well, if you were in a big company, you can't go to a small company. If you were in a small company, you can't adapt to a big company. So they want you sort of in the sweet spot, not the exact number of employees, but if it's, 10,000 or more versus 5,000 or less versus the mid cap or small early stage, they want to see that you have been able to be successful in those environments. It makes a big deal, and they know that their cultures are very different. It is a shock to go from a Fortune 500 into a mid-sized company. There's no structure. There's what would be conceived as chaos from a large company. So they know that, right? The number of direct reports. I've literally seen people say, well, this position is going to have 14 direct reports, and this person has only had 10. I don't know you if it matters to you, but four people could wander in off the street and be complete strangers, and you wouldn't have a hard time wrangling them if you're a decent leader. But that is how crazy they get because they're going to be able to justify this person fits everything that we want, and that's what you told me in talent and hiring that's what I need to do. So if it doesn't work out, well, I just did what you told me. Look at what happened. Maybe that's not what we should do. No, we just did pick the wrong person. That's a big deal. Company ownership structure, right? So if you were in a private versus public, especially in finance, I can tell you as a recruiter, that was a big deal. Most of the time, if I did not do, I think I did one search for a publicly traded company because I didn't want to work in that field. I was doing a middle market, mostly family owned, closely held businesses. In that instance, they were either private or PE backed. And all of those, if you have never worked in a PE firm with a PE backed company, it's a tough haul, really tough. You got to get that first one so that you have to have a track record. They are the most risk averse, right? Just in standard private company, if it's been a big public company, they're mostly concerned that you are used to perks and resources that they don't have, right? So just know that that's not the sweet spot. And then M&A experience, so navigation of complex organizational change. I literally had a situation like this about 2 months ago where somebody said, well, this is the new one. Recruiter called me, said, oh, you've done, M&A transactions. It's really great. Had a couple of really good track records, successful exits and everything. And she came back and said, the client said he only wants people who have done three of those and you've only done two. What the heck are you going to see different in that third one? It doesn't make any sense, but that's how risk averse they are, right? So their view of the internal candidate, this is how they feel that they have an advantage. I share these because these are what you have to overcome when you're interviewing, right? So understand that to them, it's that they're a known quantity, right? Well, you can't be a known quantity, but if you have networked and you know somebody inside that company who used to work with you somewhere, you are a known entity to that person who can speak up and say, I've seen her work. I've seen him work. I know that they can do that job. I've seen him do exactly what we need done. Now you're almost as good as an internal in terms of the known quantity, but that means you have to work your affinity points, your companies that you used to work with, and colleges that you've attended, and find people with affinity and somebody who can vouch for you, right? They know that if they turn somebody internally, they're going to be faster in onboarding. Again, you're not going to be able to convince them based on the stats that you've seen that you can onboard faster if you're not coming from their industry. But if you are coming from their industry, you can counter that with, I bring a playbook. You want me to do this? I have done that. Here's the way I did it. Here's the structure, the framework that I used. I've used it once, I've used it twice. You have to just say, got a playbook, because at the end of the day, they are going to be open to talk to you. You just for this situation, but you've got to be able to really knock down some of the things that they're not going to be telling you. But this is the situation. And then just lower recruitment and training costs. So it's going to be easier. But if you come in from a private referral, they have no hiring costs. They have none whatsoever. If somebody says, I know we got this opening, I worked with this person. There's a gentleman who landed at Earthlink. Yes, it does still exist. A few years ago, he's left now. He's gone off to do something on his own. But he landed a few years ago, and it was somebody he worked with, and he connected. He said, we just posted this job. I forgot about you. So glad you followed up. And 2 weeks later, he was in the role. No other candidates were picked, right? It was a very efficient hire, right? And then employee morale, internal mobility signals growth opportunities. So that's a big one in some companies that have black eyes in other areas. They're trying to do that. You can't do much about that, but the other three, you absolutely can be prepared to have a counter to those situations that could really make a difference, right? So, and I would say that you're more than 50% better off if you know somebody inside who can vouch for you. That makes the biggest difference because you're almost as an internal, right? So, so there was a time, and many of you have probably been this way, where your boss was your career strategy. So that you did a great job, you outperformed and out-delivered, and he said, Mary, Mike, if I ever leave here, you're coming with me. Great. And he'd leave or she'd leave, and you'd get the call, and they said, I'm putting together my team. Come on over. It's just like if I'm a big sports fan, they always eventually get their players over to them, right? So that used to work. It doesn't work anymore. One of the problems is the people that used to bring you along have thrown up their hands and retired. And in other instances, they are in roles, but they don't have the freedom and the flexibility to say, I can vouch for this person as much. There's not quite as much of that. And if you haven't stayed in touch with them through the process of really relationship building and curating and cultivating that relationship, they probably forgot about you and forgot how great you were if you haven't maintained that relationship. A lunch once a quarter, a couple times a year, a coffee, something like that. Some way, even if it's over Zoom, to stay in touch so that they really don't. So if you still have people that you reported to that are in viable positions, I can tell you just today, I was working with a client and we did an affinity point who used to work at the company she was at most recently, who used to work at that same company, and where are they now? And she said, oh my gosh, that's Bob. Bob and I worked really closely on this project. I had no idea where he landed. I can reach out to him tomorrow. We had a really great relationship. Okay. That's luck, right? Doesn't happen that often. So I also tell you that they are looking for self-directed growth. You need to have self-directed growth. I talk about it in my TED Talk. You have to have your own curriculum. You have to know as much as you can about AI, especially in the finance realm where it's just all over the place, what they're talking about, the disruption there. And you have to take that on yourself. You have to come equipped, and show that you are bringing the skill. When you had your boss in there, said, I can teach him anything. Bring him in, right? So mergers and acquisitions are disrupting reporting lines right and left, and it's still a very busy. You're not going to see as much divestiture of portfolio companies, but I saw them with clients all the way through the end of last year, anyways. So they will come up again. They aren't going to hold on to those companies forever, and they'll wait and see what shakes out. But when there is a merger and acquisition, the person that may have brought you over or could have brought you over said, I'm out the door. I'm not going to be here anymore. That phenomenon is much more consistent today than it was before. And you need a broader network. That's one of the big bottom lines here. You need to do relationship building. If you have not read the book Quiet, and if somebody hasn't recommended that to you, I strongly recommend it. It's one of many books that are really great for understanding how to be who you are and still build great relationships. So it's a great book. I can't remember the name of the author off the top of my head. I know I've recommended the book over and over again. I just can't think of it right this minute. So the interview process is taking longer. There's extended timeline. The more stakeholders have to get involved, so that reduces risk. Additional assessments and multiple formats, right? So in person, video, panel, and the new phenomenon that I just mentioned, which is we'd like you to put together a strategic plan. We'd like a 90-day plan to solve this problem. I have a client that this week, actually tomorrow, I think no, it's next week. She is doing a walkthrough of an organization, and then they want her to come back, walk through it, and tell them how to solve a problem. I said they're actually hiring you to be a consultant, but they're just not going to pay you. See a lot of that going on. Okay, so and that's one of the reasons why it gets extended out tremendously. So there's some critical success factors. With all of that going on, there's critical success factors. Mindset, again, I would say, I'm going to interject that here, is is absolutely critical. You have to understand and believe and spend the time listening to the news that says there's hiring going on, there's jobs out there and their roles. Because if you listen to the other, you won't have the mindset that you need and you won't prepare as well. It's like, why bother? Doesn't work, doesn't happen, right? You cannot be in that frame of mind. It's not true. It looks so true to you. I totally get it. Believe me, I get it. That's why number one principle of my coaching is mindset because it looks like that. And the reality is, if you gather in groups to talk about what isn't working, you're going to get more of what isn't working. If you find places that talk about what does work and you start trying them, things will work and you will feel better. The gentleman that I mentioned to you that's IT for the bank that's now got the second opportunity that he is finishing up with, he, I think, was maybe 12 or 14 months in transition. And I think he said, Pat, if I maybe had 3 interviews and none of them went well. And he's changed the way he prepares for interviews. He changed his mindset. He changed quite a few things. And within, I think it was like 3 weeks, he had all of a sudden interviews and offers, right? It's not a long time thing. It's just a willingness to agree that that's important. So once you get the mindset fixed, then you have to have clarity. And I'm going to show you some ways you need clarity. But here's what happens. If you do get a networking call, if you do get an interview, if you are meeting with somebody, you've got to be very, very, very clear about what you're looking for and what you can do for the company that is asking to hire you. I do a workshop called it's from futility to success. And one of the things I focus on tremendously, there's a survey that goes with it. And one of the questions is, can you powerfully introduce yourself at a networking meeting? Can you tell that person who you are, what you've done, and why it matters? Can you answer directly, walk me through your career? Can you give a frameworked version of that is strong and powerful and takes you through step by step by step? And if somebody says, tell me a little bit about yourself, can you knock their socks off with that? Or are you sounding like everybody else? And I'm going to give you a couple of examples on how you want to do that. You have to have a strategy, and it has to be aligned to the current market realities and your own realities, right? So in other words, market reality is the shortest distance between you and your next role is right back as close in the sweet spot of where you left as possible based on those criteria that I shared with you. Last night, I got off of a membership call and I got an email from somebody. And I had spoken to her about 2 years ago. And she said, I am going to hold out until I get into medical device. And I said, you better figure out your runway because where you've been and medical device is a big gap. It's going to take a long time. She wrote me last night and said, well, I'm still looking. And she was asking me for an introduction to somebody in the medical device industry. She hasn't worked in the medical device for 16 years. She can't possibly compete in that market. And what I had said to her was, have a strategy that says, I want to get back in medical device, but I'd like to feed myself and keep a roof over my head and have financial security a little bit more. So I'm going to have plan A. I'm going to search with a certain percentage. It may be 30%, 40%, 60%, depending upon your financial and emotional runway. I'm going to put a certain amount of time of my search time. If I'm searching 30 hours a week and I want to get landed, my emotional or financial runway has shrunk. And by the way, your financial runway usually runs out after your emotional runway. That always runs out first. All the years I've been doing coaching now, which is again many years, 1,000 people, I've never had somebody have their money run out before their emotions ran out, right? Or their state of mind. So what I said to her, and this is what I'm teaching in the strategy, is that put whatever 50%, 60% into that. So if you are working to take 30 hours a week, I'm going to put 60% of those hours into the industry that I came from because that's where my best shot is. I'm then going to put another 40, the whole rest, I may put the whole rest, I'll put the other 40% in where I want to go. So I'll spend that time searching. If I do 60-40, that's the way I will spend it. I actually recommended to her that she do 60, 20, 20. 20% into where she wanted to go and 20% into a backup plan because as her runway emotional runway and financial runway shrink, she may have to say, I can do consulting in what situation? How can I start building those relationships? Some people don't need all of that. She did under the circumstances. And here she is. And now what she has to tell when they interview her is, why has it taken you so long? Which is the stupidest question that they ask, but they still ask it, right? Why is it taking you so long? Good answer to that, by the way, is you may not be familiar with the market these days, but first of all, it does take a little bit longer. And second of all, I'm not willing to take any job. I'm only willing to take a job where I'm a great fit and a great match and I can make a great impact. Otherwise, really, it's not a win-win, and that's what I'm looking for. I'm here interviewing with you today because I think you might be that company, but I've talked to many, many companies over the last several months, and they were not adequate to what I'm looking for. But in that's a good answer when they do ask that. But here's what is she going to say? You can't say, well, I was trying to change industries, but I couldn't do that, so I'm back here. That's not going to play well, right? So you want to try to have a strategy that says whatever my runways look like, emotional or financial, I'm going to gear my percentage of time towards what the reality of that situation. And then, man, a deep understanding of industry trends and hiring practices. I just introduced last night to the membership in ChatGPT, in GPT Mini 4.0 Mini or 4.0 Mini. They have now the ability to put a prompt in there and say, every morning by 7 a.m., please send me all of the industry trending information for this industry. So you can tell it the industry, the sector. You could add to it the role. In the sample that I showed, you could add um, the like I'm any information on the CEO, et cetera. So we had all of this criteria in the prompt. And guess what happened? The second one I got, which was for sample, it turns out that there was a interview by the CEO that was very recent, had just happened, for a company that just it happened to be a company called ServiceNow, which you probably know of and have heard of. And everybody and their brother wants to work there because they actually have one of the few good reputations out there, right? So I asked also for specifically if anything news came up about the CEO there. And there was an interview, I think it was by McKinsey or something. And then I went back in and I said, please provide the link to that study. Boom. 2 seconds, I had the link. 2 seconds, I could read the article. It doesn't take that long to know what's going on. But if you can go into an interview and know more about the industry and the company and the factors that are impacting that, the company and the industry, that is a home run right from there. I've had literally had clients have the candidate, the hiring manager say, you know more about you either you know more about this than I do, or you know more about this than my entire team put together. Well, they did the research. So you can use ChatGPT. If you go into YouTube and you search how to schedule in ChatGPT, it will you'll find some videos on that. But it is in 4.0, and you just have to create a prompt that says, please send me this every day. And it says, aye, Captain, I will get that to you. It'll you can select to have it. They send you a notice in your inbox, but you can just sign in the morning after 8 o'clock or whatever time you put down, and it's going to be there and effortless. But now you go in and you say, well, I noticed that your stock yesterday rose quite a bit, so it looks like you have a good growth trajectory. How are you shepherding that money? Right? Well, we have some problems with that. Oh, cash flow could be a problem, right? Okay, so those are important pieces. Okay, so but your mindset is the biggest factor, right? So the ability to bounce back from rejection and setbacks, you have to have a plan for that, because here's where that impacts you. Um, if you can't bounce back, you lose momentum. And every single day is precious. You all can do the math. You can take your yearly salary, you can divide it up by how much it's costing you every single day, and you can say, that's my motivation. So if I don't get this next job, and you get that call that says, I'm sorry, we're going in a different direction, if you let that stop you, and I've seen it stop people for a week or two, they don't do recruiter outreach, they don't reach out to their network, they get frozen in time. What happens is what I used to lecture my oldest daughter, when she would say, that teacher's terrible and da da da. I go, then if that teacher's terrible and the devil incarnate, do not give that teacher the power to decide where you're going to go to college, because she has that power by how you respond and whether you knuckle down and study in spite of that or not. Same thing here. So I want to remind you, have a protocol for when it's rejected. Somebody that you call, a walk that you take, a run that you take, music that you play, have something that will change your state, because every day that you let that drag you back, you're losing the momentum to get the next opportunity. It's natural. It happens to everybody. The only way it stops happening is to have a plan. Being willing to pivot strategies based on feedback that you get, right? So they say, well, you did very well. I had somebody recently who got some feedback, and guess what the feedback was? We just didn't know you told us some stories, but there wasn't enough detail. We're not still sure that you actually could do that job. She said, "Oh my God, I had so many stories," but she didn't tell them with the detail. She's one of these people who thinks that you just have short resumes and short emails and short this. It's like, but if it's so short that you don't tell them what they need to hear, it doesn't matter. Right? So she said everything that they asked for, I had all the details behind it, but I didn't give it to him, and that was the reason. So now she learned. She's going to give more detail in those stories, right? Sustained effort through extended search processes. So you will get tired. You will get tired a lot. And if you let it pull you back, it's going to slow you down. And the most important part is the consistency. It's better if you have a rough day, you have a day where you just really want to get out of the house and take a long ride or go to the beach, wherever you live, whatever. You want to say, I'm going to do it for one day. If you know Atomic Habits, it always says if you're committed to something and you miss it 2 days, that's it. No, no more. Don't miss it a third day. So 1 or 2 days, lick your wounds, but get back in the action, or else they're controlling your future instead of you. And then, maybe hard, but viewing challenges as opportunities to develop. I can tell you that why I have the theory or the practice and the teaching of Bulletproof Your Career is to be able to know that your chances of that job being the last job, even if you only have 5 years, are still very slim. You've got to be ready. I'll share a story with you. This is the epitome of what real bulletproofing looks like. So these are the challenges. It's the opportunities for you to develop a different way of taking control of your career. So there is a gentleman who is in technology, and he came to the Zoom calls, and he landed. Then he stopped coming to my Zoom calls. Then he lost his job again. He came back to the Zoom calls. Then he landed again. Then he stopped coming to the Zoom calls again. Then he lost his job again. And then he reached out to me and said, I got it. You're right. This isn't working out. I need a different approach. We got on the phone. He's coached with me through the onboarding program. He was at a very big tech company in his very last role. And about 8 months ago, he was doing some of the continuous networking and small measures of what you need to do to stay bulletproof, understanding what's going on in the industry, which really served him well, because he got word in February that his whole I take that back. He knew by the time he went into 25 that his whole department was probably going to disappear. And sure enough, February, they told him, we're done. We're shutting it down. You will have until March 31st, and feel free to find a role inside the company. It's a big company. What were we doing the 8 months that he got that word, got the knowledge that it looked like that was coming? He was getting, if you're in a company and you get certifications and training and you're on the job, it counts for something. When you're outside, you're not, it's going to be a hard time to beat the internal or somebody inside who's got experience, or even outside who has experience. So a certification without experience isn't as good as a certification with experience. So he started getting that. And he started networking, and we divided his time into, I think it was 80% internal, because there was a lot going on in other parts of the company. And they were going to take that money from his group and deploy it elsewhere. So he started to make relationships with the leadership of those ones. He started looking at what the industry and the competitors were doing and having lunches and meetings with them. And he did it consistently for the 8 months. And he used 20% for external. So have one backup plan to have some external. His role, they announced it on February 1st. They said your last day will be March 31st. He ended his role on March 31st, and on April 1st, he started his new role inside the same company. And by the time March 31st came, he had 5 legit offers from other hiring managers inside that company on his desk for they're all very innovative breakthrough areas that the company is focused on. And he even had been involved in a series of interviews that were going very well for one outside company, which was Google, which was his Cinderella company 3 years ago. And then he said, nah, I've heard a lot about what's going on in there. I know this place now, and I've got four other managers that want to hire me if this one doesn't work out, right? So that's what making using the challenges of this to say, I'm never going to let this happen again. I'm going to be just like that and have those opportunities lined up for me, right? So what else can you do about it? You've got to know your runway, as I said. You've got to really focus on market intelligence so you can be smarter than them in the interview. It's going to win it over every time. And by the way, it's the other thing that will really help you with the internal candidates. Like, you know, we just interviewed Bob and he couldn't answer those questions. You answered those and you gave us more information than we needed. If they don't say it to you and they're thinking that, that's important. You have to identify the low risk fits, and you have to have multiple plans, plan A, plan B, plan C, based on your both of your timelines, right? So clarity is the path to opportunity, though. So you have to have the right strategy. You have to have a compelling communication, actionable networking, and you have to raise your level of interviewing to interview mastery. One of the things that we use inside the membership is an interview journal. It has specific questions, but you can do it. It's so easy. You can do it yourself. It's just that when you leave an interview, before you're going, how did I feel going into this interview? How do I think I performed? What questions was I not able to answer? What stories didn't seem to resonate? So you go through and you do a debrief, an after action review. If you've been in the military, that's what that is. And then all of a sudden, what you're doing is writing your own interview playbook. So I gotta focus more on here. This answer is playing very well with everybody. I'm going to use that more. So you get your own scorecard and your own playbook. That's a way to really get elevated in interviewing, right? And so here's lack of clarity in intro. And you're going to look at this and say, That's ridiculous. Nobody would say that." This is a word for word interview because I used to do before COVID, I used to do workshops once a month here in Atlanta, breakfast meetings. It was a very intimate executive meeting with 20 people. And they would mix and mingle for about 15 minutes before I would start the presentation. And I would intentionally go around the room and listen to the introduction so I could course correct. And I walked up behind one person and he had just finished saying this. And I went, okay, I got to go write this down because it's priceless, right? I was in XYZ industry, then moved to a completely different industry. I can really do anything. I just want to work with great people. I'm versatile. I'm a jack of all trades. How the heck can you provide a target to that with something like that? And how can you introduce that person? Like, he's a great guy. He just wants to work with good people, and he's really versatile. He's a Swiss Army knife. That's not going to work, right? So clarity, this person doesn't have clarity about what he wants. What he really is saying, he could have said it in fewer words. I just want a job. Can't do that today. You've got to give them a target, right? So here is an intro that says something. Finance can strangle a business or help fuel its growth. As CFO for PE-backed middle market manufacturing companies, I've been able to be the spark that ignites profitable growth. My motto has always been, let's see if we can find a way to make this work. So the forward thinking is expressed in that, active collaboration is expressed in that, and technology leverage is implied in that, right? Another one, and this I broke up into, so the first statement for this, I'm the CIO who melds together disparate systems, cultures, and teams. I'm a unifier. The ideal next role is a Fortune 1000 healthcare company. Okay, I got a target now. I got something to work with. I'm well suited to situations where projects are behind and patience is short. And somebody says, I was talking to a CEO just 3 days ago, and he said, I don't know what I'm going to do if we don't get this back on track. Let me make that introduction. Now I've got something that they can hang their hat on. And the approach is my proven framework quickly identifies root causes and unites teams around solutions. Using something like proven framework, proven playbook, has expedited, has compressed the time from my entry to solving the problem. That's how you start to build the argument against the internal candidate. But he's better, he's stronger, he's a better leader, and I don't think it's going to take him that long to get up to speed. She's bringing all this problem solving. I'm sure she can figure this out. That's what this is saying. And I have one more for you to see. I'm a builder at heart. I've built cohesive teams, new divisions in emerging markets, and ad hoc teams to drive major transformation initiatives. I seek to stay in the financial industry in VP, EVP, global risk roles. That's where I want to be. Don't talk to me about anything else. That's my sweet spot. And I know that because I have clarity. Um, and I wanted to include this sample because many have a gap. And sometimes it is, lots of times these days, it's parental leave or illness leave, etc. I took a pause due to my mother's illness. She needed my undivided attention, and trying to take care of her and do my job would have impacted my ability to meet my performance standards. Right? So I made a choice because they were paying me good money and I couldn't do the job the way they wanted me to. Having navigated that challenge, I'm looking forward to getting back to making an impact as soon as possible. So when you address the elephant in the room, and that's it, you don't have to say anything more. You stop. You don't go on and on. You don't say, let me explain. Done. I've explained it. You either like it or you don't, but I'm done. Don't, if you sound weak or unsure because your confidence is down and you say something about a gap, that's when they come after you. Just trust me. My clients used to do it to everybody that came in that way. Okay. And then, so when you are networking and you have clarity, you want to make clear requests for help. In any job search, so this is something that I don't think people say enough of. This is a good way to talk when you're networking. In any job search, introductions are the most important way to land a role. Introductions to CMOs and companies with large retail presence are most helpful. There you go. Now you have a target to help me. People love it. They want to help you, but they can't help you if you say, I can do a little bit of everything and I just want to work in a good place. Getting introduced to a great connection is a big help as well. Please like, share, or comment on my LinkedIn post to increase visibility. So it's another way that somebody can they may not know anybody to introduce you to. They may not think that they can help you. And then you go, well, just like my posts and share them. It's going to increase my visibility because the algorithm's going to love me more. And then let me know of networking events that might be good for me to attend. I would like to check back in with you occasionally if that's okay. So those might not be, there might be some dialogue in between there, but you want to be saying those things. You don't want to sound like a robot. We have enough of those around us right now, but just what you're giving them is a target. You're giving them, telling them other ways that they can support you, and you are you're really stating, let's stay in touch, right? So ongoing support is open the door, right? So here's what I want you to know. There is such power in authenticity, which is why when I say if you see yourself as an introvert and identify as I'm an introvert, therefore I cannot build relationships like you're talking about, Pat, I would tell you that if you do it authentically, the way that it works for you, there's a networking meeting and you get to the meeting not when everybody's already there and the room is buzzing, because that will just be like getting hit in the face with a baseball bat. You get to the room first and you stop by and you have to sign in and register, and they say, well, Pat, good to see you tonight. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Anybody registered that's in this industry that you know of? Because the person who does registration knows everybody who's going to be in that room. What I'm looking for is somebody who might be able to talk with me about this. Yeah, you should meet Mike and you should meet Sue over there. Yeah, no problem. There they go. You get there early, the room isn't full, and you you mix and mingle with one or two people. You do not have to be the glad hander. One or two people is going to be enough for your introvert in terms of being tired by talking to 20 people. And when you're tired and the presentation starts, leave. You'll feel like that was a good meeting. I met two people. I found somebody that was a perfect fit, and I left and I still feel good. Make it work for you. That's authentic relationship building. When you have clarity, authentic clarity, this is what I want. This is exactly what I'm looking for in my role. Then the opportunities virtually find you. And when you are genuine, the most genuine connections that can really help you will show up. And when you have clear self-understanding, that just it really elevates your authenticity to somebody. One of the things I stress over and over again with the members and coaching clients is that when you go to a job and you try to be the pretzel for them, and you think, well, I know they're looking for this, and I didn't want to answer it like that. I don't think they'd like that answer. If they wouldn't like that answer, and that's philosophically how you think or how you do things, you're not going to do well in that company. I would rather have them say, well, that's not the way we do things around here. Great, good to know now. Then when I come in here and get another short stint, much better to know now. So don't be a pretzel, be authentic and be honest about everything authentically that you speak, in terms of really evaluating whether you're a good fit. Because if somebody says, well, we wanted somebody, if somebody, people always say there's ageism out there. Yep. You don't want to work for a company that thinks that you're too old, because it's not going to work out well. Trust me. You go, well, there's plenty of other companies that don't give a darn, especially in the middle market category, right? So when you have charity and clarity about your value and direction, then you can express your authentic self with confidence. And that's the big game changer. And that authentic clarity creates magnetism. And that's how you draw the right opportunities for you. Somebody says, I just talked to Mary last week and she was talking about this. I think that I just heard about a company like that, because when you've got a single track storyline and you're very, very clear, people are much, much better able to provide. Because when, remember I said in the beginning that, you're doing all this networking and it's not resulting in leads. This is the reason: lack of clarity and just trying to sound like you would take anything. I know it feels like that's the right way, but it isn't. It's being very clear on what is or is not a fit and making sure the people around you know that too. If you're talking to a company and the whole process is bad and they're messed up. I've had this where they schedule interviews and then, oh, CEO can't be here, yada, yada, yada. When all of that happens, remember a phrase, and I cannot remember who first said this to me. I did not invent this, but it is absolutely true. How they do anything is how they do everything. If they are disrespectful to you in the interview process and in the follow-up process, and then still come to you with an offer like this, that's why this gentleman is continuing to talk to the other company. They didn't think that spending more than 2 months without communicating with him they didn't think there was anything wrong with that. I do. That's how they do things. How they do anything is how they do everything. Right? So the rules have changed. This is what I want you to know. It's time for you to take charge. I've identified some harsh realities, but it's better. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. And understanding how you can play the game differently is going to make all the difference in the world. And then for me, everything starts with strategy, whether I'm teaching LinkedIn or interviewing or relationship building, anything. And the basic attack manner. Here's what I see, and that's why I have this on this slide. I see people trying this tactic and then this tactic and then that tactic. No consistency. They haven't tried anything long enough to know whether it works. They try something one week and then they change it the next, or maybe a couple weeks and then they change it up. And they don't have a strategy. They have a bunch of tactics that they're throwing against the wall. That's like the New York Knicks. I'm rooting for them. One of my clients' son is a player for the New York Knicks. So I follow them religiously. New Yorkers probably, if you like basketball, probably appreciate that. But he doesn't put them out on the floor and go, "We got to win this game, guys. Go at it," right? He doesn't. There's a game plan. There's a strategy. They know what they're going to do. You need to have that so that you can win too. I'm going to have time, James, to answer some questions. I just want to introduce you to places that you can find me. And on the next slide, while I'm just covering this, if you have your camera, your iPhone rather, available, or phone available, I'm going to show you some QR codes to get something. And Joyce has these slides, and she will be able to share these with you. Okay. So if you want to see my website, it's bulletproofyourcareer.com, and on there, as you can see here, download my step-by-step guide to getting found by the right executive recruiters. So there's 2 documents that come with that. This is me on LinkedIn, cleverly disguised as finding me by searching under Patricia Romboletti. I'm espionage. My book, Bulletproof Your Career, is available on Amazon. It's available on there. It's available in Kindle and paperback. And then my BYC membership registration is closed right now, but when I get to the other page, I'll tell you we will be opening it soon, and we will definitely be opening it sooner for those who are on the wait list. So we have found we like bringing in nice, small, intimate cohorts so we can give them a lot of time. This week so far, I have spent 6 hours live in the membership coaching inside the membership like this, but in much, much actually smaller group. So it's not just a find your own way. There's a lot of support and coaching that goes on. So that will be there. In the next page, what I'm going to show you, if you scan this QR code, here's what's going to happen. You will get a landing page. And I'll show you that after. I want to leave that up on the screen so you can get to it. So if you scan that, you're going to be taken to a landing page where you can register because I've been very, very concerned about people's mindset with all that's been going on in the last several months. And it's something I'm very passionate about anyways. So when you click on there and you fill out that form, starting this coming Monday, you will start to get 4 Monday Mindset. In my membership, we do that every Monday, and we have now 107 of them in there because we are over 2 years in having the membership. And what you are going to get is 4 that I have handpicked. I write all of these and I record all of these myself. So I will be in your earbuds with my motivational Monday, and I picked 4 for you. When you sign up and you get those 4 every Monday, you can keep them forever. We created you'll sign in. We'll have you do a sign up so that you can always go back to those 4 and you can keep playing them as much as you want. So that's what's there. Now, what will happen at the end of 4 weeks, if you say, I'd like to get more of those, I'm kind of tired of those, or anytime you want to get more of those, then you can subscribe and get one every month for the next 12 months. It's a 12-month subscription, and it's a whopping dollar a week. It's be 50, normally it'd be $52 to get one of them a week. So if you listen to the 4 and say, no, I'll just keep listening to these, have at it. We'd love to have you do that, and I hope it makes an impact. If you say, maybe I'd like some fresh ones of these, 2 things happen. You get each one now every Monday, but you also get access to the 107, and by then there will be 111 videos that will be in there. You'll get access to them, and we divide them into playlists such as Lift Yourself Up, What's Under Your Control, things that, how to face fear and resistance, etc. So we break all of the topics that I do into playlists for you, so it's easy. So, but because I'm talking to Fang, if you just make note, this is an easy one, Fang 10, you'll get $10 off of the 1 year subscription. So 42 instead of 52. This on the right-hand side will help you join the wait list, and I'll take you over there now. I have 2 things for you to think about for that. That wait list will help you join for the membership. When we do wait list, 2 things happen. I do a 1 hour workshop for everybody who's on the wait list before the registration opens for those people. Everybody who comes to that call and in this next, everybody who's on the wait list and comes to the workshop that I do, which is completely free, and there's a little bit of homework, so it really works, will get the audio version of my book because I have it recorded, but it's right now it's only in the membership. So that's if you show up at the workshop, you get that. And we do special pricing and free. We do for those who have a 1 year register for 1 year subscription, they get 30-minute coaching, which is worth $225 at my hourly coaching rate. And if you take, we have a lot of people who come in with the 3 year, and they get we get 3 1 hour coaching sessions to come in for the 3 year, but only if you're on the wait list. That's the only time we make it. Okay? So I know that's a lot, but I wanted to get that through. And those 2 QR codes hopefully are working for you. If you don't have your phone or don't want to go through the hassle of the QR codes, I'm used to it now. That's the only way you can get a restaurant menu. So it's become second nature to me. But I also gave Joyce the links that are behind those if you need those, and she can put them in the Dropbox for you, or in the chat rather. Okay. And then just one last thing quick. I know I wanted to wrap it up for you in a timely manner here. I do want to share. I've got to stop this share anyways. Hold on. There we go. So this is where you will go when you get to the to get the 4 free Monday Mindsets. And again, they're going to be yours forever. It's a video. You get video and audio and actually a transcript, but they're all 1 to 2 minutes. It's not a long time, not like this. It's shorter. So you just have to sign up and you'll get that. This is the this is the actual membership, right? So that's what everybody who belongs to the membership signs in on when they first get in, and I'll get back to that in a second. And then this is where you can sign up for the wait list, and this is a page full of recommendations and testimonials from somebody who took a couple times for her to register and say, this is what I need to do, and made a huge difference. And the only thing I want to tell you about the membership, if anybody on here, there's a phone number that I provided Joyce for you, that 404 number. If anybody on here, what I would be more than willing to do is to do a private sort of tour of the membership for a group of folks from the FANG. Just come on, you could ask me any questions. I'll take you in and show it to you all and just to tell you, because most people don't know what the heck's a membership, but I think it would help. Okay.